Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
It's 3:25 a.m. on a Friday, and I'm on the N train coming back home after a 12-hour shift at the downtown restaurant where I work. Unlike my coworkers, I'm a waiter, not an actor. This is something that intrigues me. I had been doing this kind of job for over 8 years, and most of my coworkers started doing it pretty much at the same time I did. So why am I still a waiter, and they had been promoted to actors? I start to relax, and for some strange reason recollecting different things I experienced in the New York City subway in the past. I'm from Brazil and had been living in New York for over 11 years. During all this time, I rode the subway daily. I can remember the first time I traveled by NYC subway. I was not pleased. I found it to be too old, too dirty, and apparently about to fall apart every time it made a turn. It was so loud, so different from the subway where I came from. There the subway is silent and so clean, much like DC subway. But after a while I noticed that the NYC subway is far more efficient than the one I knew. Plus it works 24 hours a day. Other subway closes at 1 a.m., so I guess I will stick with New York City subway. I remember a day on the subway when I was surrounded by Tibetan monks all in their traditional costumes. I remember another time when the subway got stuck and people inside started to complain about not going home. Then a homeless person riding in the same car started to yell, "Do you all want to go home? Guess what? I'm home. I live here." Also, I will never forget the time I was trapped inside the train for about an hour on September 11, 2001. I remember some of the performers singing, dancing, and doing all kinds of different things. It is also hard not to mention the people who beg for money. I have to admit, some of them are quite creative. The one that I will never forget was a female midget who walked on the subway using the catchword, "change." This was also the only word she said. In the meantime, the subway was still running, and I was thinking about another interesting story that occurred on a night much like this one. The train was not crowded, and there were plenty of available seats. There was a man in front of me, probably Eastern European, and some Spanish guys 2 seats from me. In the left end of the car, an old lady was talking to herself, and on the opposite side, an African American was sleeping. I noticed that the old lady was having a really substantial conversation with an imaginary friend, or perhaps with only her conscience. It was really hard to know, but from what I could see and hear during a period of 15 minutes, she expressed anger, love, doubt, sadness, and of course laughs. After the Union Square stop, more people arrived and she got a little shy, but it was only for a few minutes. Then she started the conversation again. I noticed that when the train stopped at the 28th Street, the African American was still sleeping. Maybe he was also a waiter or an actor. Who knows? Maybe he already missed his stop. Maybe not. At this very moment, 2 cops decided to join us on our journey. They entered the car from the left side and stayed close to the old lady. They also seemed tired, but they didn't sit down. I guess New York City police are not allowed to. Anyway, they added some blue colors to the car, but nothing really changed. When the train reached Times Square, suddenly the faces of the 2 cops changed. They saw something, and apparently it was a big deal. They started to come towards my direction, and my heart almost got out of my mouth. They were now walking faster, and I was about to have a cardiac arrest. They passed by me, and I was so relieved. After all, law enforcement presence and undocumented immigrants do not tend to result in a very nice recipe. But what did they see? They went straight into Mr. Sleeping Beauty's direction, and as they reached him, one of the cops went to the outside and signaled the train's conductor to not proceed. A minute later, he was back with his partner, and at that moment I was extremely curious about what could be the case. Maybe the man was sick. They were waiting for the paramedics. As they started to examine the man, carefully moving him, I could see a red spot. Nothing big, but enough to catch my attention. Apparently the cops saw it too, and I could see a certain concern on their faces. About 3 minutes later, the train was still stuck. Now it was 3:55 and I was halfway home. Another 5 minutes passed quickly and some paramedics arrived. They seemed very worried. As another 10 minutes passed, the paramedics and the cops worked hard trying to resuscitate the man, but with no success. Yes, he was dead. For more than a half hour, I had been traveling along with a cadaver. It was not the first time I saw somebody dead, but I never had this kind of experience in motion. I guess the most amazing thing is that, like me, nobody even noticed his lack of life. After a while, all the passengers were asked some basic questions. Did we notice any movement of the body, or did anybody see another person with the deceased? The Spanish guys could not answer all the questions, so I had to translate using my broken Spanish. La policía quieren saber si hay visto algo sospecho. At a certain point, I saw a question mark over the head of my fellow Latino friends. I guess my translation was causing more confusion than clarification, but after a few attempts, we could understand each other. As expected, nobody saw any irregularity, but we were still trapped until they allowed the train to continue. I thought of changing trains, but at this point it would take a long time. A cab, perhaps? No, it's too expensive, and plus, it takes a while to get those, and the drivers do not always want to leave Manhattan. So the best choice was to wait for the clearance. I finally got home around 5:30 a.m. I was tired and a little stressed, but I'm sure that tomorrow I'll see or be part of another unique story in New York City's subway.